Hello and welcome to Brewers Daily, part of the Fan Arch Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dave Gasper. Lots to get to here on a Wednesday show. The exhibition games are done. Cactus League play is done. Next up, the regular season. Lots to talk about. We got potential position changes here, injury updates, and the Brewers have made a trade because, yes, it can never just be that straightforward, that simple. You have 26 players in big league camp. It seems like you got it all narrowed down to your opening day roster, and then the Brewers just got to shake things up and add a little wrinkle to it. The Brewers made a trade on Tuesday, right before the media availability with Pat Murphy prior to the game. So just a few hours before the exhibition game against the Reds, the Brewers made a trade with one of their most frequent trade partners, the Tampa Bay Rays, Matt Arnold's old stomping grounds. And they acquired pitcher Jake Woodford from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for minor league pitcher K.C. Hunt and cash considerations. So, Jake Woodford, what do we know about this guy? Former St. Louis Cardinals, bounced around the league the last couple of years, 29 years old, right-handed reliever. He's someone who has 5 pitches in his arsenal and 3 different fastball variation. So that's something that the Brewers have certainly targeted when it comes to guys. He's got a sinker, a four-seamer, and a cutter, and on top of a sweeper and a changeup as well. Primarily goes with the sinker and the sweeper against right-handed batters, and then against lefties, primarily four-seam and changeup, and mixes in that cutter as well. So Jake Woodford, the results have not been great. You look up his ERA the past couple of years, you're going to be like, oh, this guy. Career 5.10 ERA. The past 3 years, he's had an ERA of 6.44 last year, 7.97 in 2024, and then an ERA of 6.23 back in 2023. So, not great when it comes to results there. 36 in the third innings last year, 22 games pitched, all out of the bullpen. Multi-inning relief option here for the Brewers. They did say that he could pitch at the beginning of games. That'd probably be more like the Aaron Ashby opener type rather than a regular rotation type of arm, especially given the quality of arms that the Brewers have. But Jake Woodford, he's a guy that the Brewers have had their eye on for a while. I talked with Brewers President of Baseball Operations Matt Arnold shortly after the trade was made, and he told about how they've had their eye on him for a while. They're familiar with him from his time in St. Louis, and so they're very excited to get him. They're very short on right-handed relief depth. Now, this is something that I've been talking about here too on the show. If you've been following Brewers Daily for some time and watching these shows, which if you have, appreciate it. If you're new here, highly encourage you to continue to watch, subscribe, and see new episodes every single day here throughout the week. But as I've been talking about, they seem very short on relief depth, especially with right-handed pitchers. A lot of lefties in that group, and you look at it, they only had 4 healthy right-handed relievers. They had nothing down in the minors for some additional depth there on the 40-man roster. So getting someone like Jake Woodford makes sense. And Matt Arnold pointed out, it's like we were skewed way too much to the left. So they end up getting some right-handed relief depth here in Jake Woodford. He is out of minor league options, so he is going to be joining the big league roster here. He's got put on the 40-man. He was on a minor league deal in Tampa, but he's getting put on the 40-man here. Akil Baddoo transferred to the 60-day IL, and it's unclear if he will be here in time for opening day. So the Brewers have a 72-hour window in order to activate a player that they've traded for. So it's a grace period, help guys travel, things like that in order to get them ready. So the Brewers could conceivably get to opening day, keep the 26 guys that they still have in camp, and then activate them on Friday when the Brewers don't have a game. But then he'll be ready to go for Saturday, and they'll send out someone who did make the opening day roster on Thursday. So we don't quite know yet. The Brewers' 26-man roster for opening day is due today at 11. So I would imagine we would find out fairly soon here if that's the route that they're going to end up going. But as of right now, it is unclear what the Brewers are going to do when it comes to Woodford being ready for opening day. But he is going to be joining this team, and the Brewers are going to be trying to work with them and hopefully try and turn around those results from those 6+ ERAs the past couple of seasons. And going back out to the Rays, Casey Hunt, minor league pitcher, starting pitcher for Double-A Biloxi last season. Had about a 4.5 ERA last year, regressed a bit, had a dominant 2024 season, going across 3 levels, low A, high A, double A, dominated every step of the way, had a 2.03 ERA, was an undrafted free agent out of Mississippi State, and just burst onto the scene in 2024 with that performance, and then regressed a bit last season, spent the whole year in double A, and really passed up and not really in the near-term plans for the Brewers rotation. Very far down the depth chart in terms of what the Brewers have. I mean, they're loaded in AAA, probably deserving of a spot in AAA this year, but the Brewers just don't have it for him. So he was some expendable pitching depth that the Brewers had down in the minor leagues. I asked Matt Arnold about sending Casey Hunt out, and it's very difficult for him to send out these prospects, but you have to give up something to get something, and they felt that it made sense to turn Casey Hunt and what he was and what he could be into something that could help them out now. So that was the justification for the move there. I'm good with it. I liked Casey Hunt as a prospect, but his future in Milwaukee was certainly muddy with his ultimate upside and the sheer depth of talent above him in the Brewers system. So Jake Woodford comes in, Casey Hunt goes out. Wish him the best of luck. Tampa Bay is a great organization for him to go to. They're great at developing pitchers, and he might have a better path to a big league playing time out there. So what this can do for the bullpen picture with Woodford now coming in, obviously, as I mentioned, right-handed reliever, so he's going to come in, try and help balance out, give some additional depth there for that group. I'm not sure, though, if this is going to really kind of change the balance in the meantime when it comes to the 4 lefties and 4 righties that the Brewers were slated to have in that group. Because for your lefties, you got Aaron Ashby, DL Hall, Jared Koenig, Angel Zerpa. And your righties, you got Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, Grant Anderson, and then you had Easton McGee. Now you're going to add Woodford to this mix, whether it's opening day or whether it's Saturday. You're going to add Woodford to this mix. So who ends up going out? I think it very well could be Easton McGee, who is the odd man out here. He still has options. He can move up and down. He rode the shuttle last year, essentially. That could be a route that they go again. Because when you look at the lefties, before I get to the lefties, the other righties, McGill and Uribe not going anywhere. Grant Anderson, for whatever reason, I've seen a lot of Brewers fans hate on Grant Anderson. Grant Anderson had like a 3.5 ERA last year. Grant Anderson was not bad. All right, he was pretty good, pretty reliable for him. So Grant Anderson's not going anywhere. So then you look at the lefties. Ashby's not going to be going anywhere. Koenig, I don't see going anywhere either. DL Hall, I don't see him being optioned. I really don't. Angel Zerpa, really impressed in Brewers camp. I don't see him going anywhere either. So I think this makes Easton McGee the odd man out. We will see what the Brewers end up doing, but that's what it would look like to me in the meantime here. Just getting some of that additional depth when it comes to right-handed relief pitchers. So that's what I'm looking at for this bullpen picture. Unless there could be maybe an injury or something, that could also change the calculus. If there's some injury that we don't yet know about, that perhaps someone is dealing with in that bullpen picture, and they want to place them on the IL, they're trending that direction. We haven't heard about that. That's not necessarily going to be the case, but that is a possibility that maybe someone's come up with something's bothering them, and so you make this move, they can end up on the IL for even just a short time, and that kind of spurs on this type of acquisition here. So we'll see what the Brewers end up doing, but in all likelihood, at this moment, based on what I've seen, Easton McGee is probably your odd man out here for this group. Onto the position player side, with the Brewers playing their final exhibition game against the Reds. Just standing there, pregame, watching the Brewers take infield, take BP. I saw Brandon Lockridge getting some time at first base, getting some work in over there. Fielding some throws from his middle infielders during BP, which I'm like, that's interesting. And then we get to the ninth inning of the exhibition game here against the Reds, and Brandon Lockridge is in there at first base getting some game action. So I asked Pat Murphy about it afterwards, just, hey, is that going to be a possibility that we see him there more often throughout the season, just to get him into the lineup? And Murphy talked about how essentially you need to have that third first baseman, just in case, they got a pinch run for Andrew Vaughn earlier in the game, and Bowers is already used, or he's DHing, or whatever it is. You got to have that kind of extra depth at first base in terms of who can cover that position if you pinch run for a guy, because Andrew Vaughn, not the most fleet of foot. As Murphy pointed out, I mean, he's kind of right there with Gary Sanchez for being the slowest guy on the team. So when they want to pinch run for him, where are they going to go at first base? Last year, it was Andrew Monasterio, who we saw get a decent amount of playing time late in games at first base. This year, it's looking like that's going to be Brandon Lockridge. So he gets some pregame experience, he gets some exhibition game experience here, and that could be a spot where we see him throughout the season playing, your 8th, 9th inning in case they pinch run for Andrew Vaughn, or have to pinch run for Bowers, or Bowers is otherwise unavailable, or he already pinch hit earlier in the game. Whatever it is, if they need that extra first baseman, then that's what Lockridge is going to potentially be. So that's really kind of the main time we're going to see him. We're not going to see Brandon Lockridge getting too much for starts at first base, I would imagine. The Brewers have other routes that they could go for that. Also, okay, just want to get to this as well. The Brewers offered some updates on their injured players as well, so I want to get to sharing some of those with you also, because we've made it to the end of spring training here, but there still are a number of injuries that the Brewers are dealing with. Nothing really too devastating, thankfully, knock on wood here, but still some injuries to update on. So, Akil Baddoo, one of the free agent signings for the Brewers, he has that quad strain. He is, as I mentioned, just got transferred to the 60-day IL to open up that 40-man roster spot. His estimated return is in June, so I mean that's the earliest he could return anyways. But he is going to be out for the first 2 months of the season. Stuart Baroa, another outfielder that the Brewers have, saw a very little amount of time with the big league club last year. He has a shoulder strain that he's been dealing with, so he's been out all of spring. But he is back to DHing in games back in Arizona. He is progressing to end-stage baseball activities, according to the Brewers this week. His projected return is April 1st, so I'm guessing he would be immediately sent to AAA Nashville, and that's just where he would return and just continue to play in games down there until the Brewers ultimately need him, if they end up ultimately needing him. Logan Henderson, who had the elbow concern, he is progressing well from his elbow soreness. He is scheduled for a simulated game today in Nashville. So he's going to be down there in Nashville with the Sounds, throwing a simulated game, continuing his build-up and being ready to go. But he should be good. Also, Brandon Woodruff, scheduled for a simulated game today, also in Nashville. Brandon Woodruff has been in Milwaukee the past couple of days here for these exhibition games with the team. He's going to be starting on Tuesday here in Milwaukee, so he's still going to be ready to go, but he needs to continue his build-up, and he's going to have his sim game in Nashville today as well. I would imagine just kind of largely because the Brewers have the day off today, so instead of making everyone come in or whoever come in for a 5-inning simulated game for Woodruff on the day off before opening day, they're just going to give those guys a rest and have Woodruff down there in Nashville. Now I would imagine him and Henderson are just going to go back and forth. You simulate your inning, and then you sit down for, instead of sitting down for 10 minutes, whatever it is, you sit down for Henderson's simulated inning, and then you just swap and go back and forth, and you make it 5 innings, and that works. But he's still scheduled to start on Tuesday next week against the Rays, but he's going to fly down to Nashville for this simulated game instead of doing it in Milwaukee. So that's what he's going to end up doing. Quinn Priester, another big piece for the Brewers here. He is continuing to ramp up his throwing program. He threw a bullpen on Tuesday, and he is currently estimating an early April rehab assignment to continue to build up. So because he hasn't really built up dealing with the thoracic outlet in his wrist, he is going to start a rehab assignment in early April. Build up his progression, to be able to pitch 5 innings, 75 pitches, whatever it is. And then Pat Murphy told us the other day he is estimating an early May return for Quinn Priester to the big league rotation. But he's going to be starting that rehab assignment fairly soon. Also, a couple of Brewers relievers. Craig Yoho had the calf injury a couple of weeks ago, and he is getting conservative treatment. His projected return is early to mid-April, so shouldn't miss too much time. Rob Zastryzny has the rhomboid strain in his back, and he is also getting conservative treatment, but he's returned to pitching in games and is on track to start a rehab assignment in AAA Nashville to open the season. So opening day in Nashville, Rob Z is going to be down there on rehab. His projected return is early April. So Rob Z shouldn't miss too much time. Probably the minimum amount of time on the IL is what Rob Z is going to require. So he should be good to go fairly soon. He's also out of minor league options, so him returning to this bullpen is going to change up that picture. Him and Woodford, 2 guys that cannot get sent down, so that could shake up how this thing ends up looking. But we'll discuss that once we get to it. Once we get to Rob Z returning and how that bullpen could look. But the season is almost upon us. We got one more sleep. One more sleep until Brewers baseball begins in earnest, the games that count. We are almost there. We have almost completely made it back. No more exhibition games. Next ones count. And be sure to be following Brewers Daily all the way, as we'll have your coverage all throughout the season. Follow, subscribe, get notified every single time a new episode drops. Follow me on Twitter as well at dgasper24. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Brewers Daily.